Hey, what's up, everybody? So today we have Pedro Pimentel here with us from Wordclock, dark ambient cryo chamber label artist out of Portugal. He is just in the midst of releasing his fourth cryo chamber album, A Greater Bliss. So the pre-orders just went up, I think, 2 or 3 days ago. I don't remember, but yeah, they just went up, and the album's going to be coming out next week. So we thought this would be a really cool time for us to get together and have a conversation. So I hope you guys will all enjoy the talk that we have here today. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and hop over to Pedro here. How are you doing today, Pedro?
Hey, doing pretty good.
Oh, I still have you muted. That's my fault. 1 second. Okay, now we're good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Cool.
Hey, doing pretty good. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Yeah. So, yeah, I've really been enjoying this new album. I hope everybody has been able to at least check out these first two tracks. Anybody that was here waiting during the countdown got to go ahead and hear them for sure. But yeah, this is I think this is going to be another really great album of yours that I think everybody's going to really love. And so I think I'd like to just talk about that a little bit here at the beginning, since that is sort of the main attraction of today, since that's you know that's the big news for you this week. So yeah, let's start with what is the theme of the album, and how did you come up with this idea?
Um, the idea came up some years ago um, during a trip to Rome, actually.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, and whilst there, I saw a statue that's called the Ecstasy of Saint Teresa. And my girlfriend was telling me the story, or the concept behind the statue, which I didn't know, and it was basically about the beatific visions, which is the Christian um, uh, canon of religious visions. It's the direct vision of God, supposedly. And Saint Teresa is a nun that wrote a bunch of texts detailing her visions. Uh, all of them are very weird, very dreamlike, very feverish, and uh, quite visual too. And I thought it was a very interesting idea. So it started from there. The idea stuck in my head, and I'm not Catholic, but I was born in a Catholic country in Southern Europe. So the even if you're not if you even if you don't practice the religion, it's literally everywhere you are. The art, the architecture is uh, just everywhere. So these stories, you can't escape them. You grow up with these all these beautiful art and all these beautiful stories that just find their way, into the deepest part of your mind. And it kind of just evolved from there. After knowing that story, I started looking up into that kind of thematic and branching out into other stories. And many of these sort of stories of apparitions and visions are adaptations of adaptations of adaptations, and then there are just a bunch of common traits, and the descriptions usually add these very similar things going on in between them. A bunch of them described it the same way, this direct vision of something higher, I guess. So that's where it came from, and I started working on the album a couple of years ago, maybe longer than that, and yeah, it just evolved from there. It started off as that one idea and a bunch of little sounds, and experimenting with sounds and trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. And eventually things started to form over time.
Yeah,
So yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, so I wasn't born Catholic, but my family kind of tried out some different Christianities throughout my childhood,
Yeah.
and we pretty much landed on Catholicism. So I went to a Catholic church for the longest that I've ever been attached to any one particular religion. Probably, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years I went to a Catholic church, and that's what I always said. That's what I say to this day is that especially within Christianity, Catholicism is a really beautiful religion. The churches are beautiful. The robes that the priest wears are beautiful. The way that they change everything, like I remember at my church, it was just like every sort of holiday or season or whatever you want to call it that happened, there would be like different robes that the priest would wear, and there would just be like the whole church would just be decorated differently for whatever the particular situation was. Like it was a very visual and ritualistic religion, as opposed to when I went to church with some of my friends. It was just, very bland. Like the preacher looked more like a businessman, and the church looked just like a community center. There was, it was just kind of like a rectangular room. There was nothing special about the room. There was nothing special about the man up there talking. It really felt like a very, very watered down form of Catholicism to me. So, and I
I
think that's
understand.
awesome that you got inspired in Rome, because I gave up on pretty much all religion a long time before 2011. But in 2011, I went to Rome, and I was able to see a mass what's it called? St. Peter's Basilica, I think, at the Vatican.
That's
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So one of my friends, it was all in Italian, and I don't speak Italian, but my friend
Yeah.
that I went with did speak Italian, and he sort of was just like whispering to me what the different themes were, and I was trying to pick parts out. But so do you remember where specifically within Rome you saw the statue? Was it in the Vatican?
No, this was a small church. I don't even quite remember the name of the church even, but it was on more towards the outskirts of Rome.
Okay.
And in Rome, as in any of these cities, like everything is just so beautiful. It's insane.
Yeah.
There's the, these buildings and architecture are just everywhere, and these figures of stories and Catholic myths, Christian myths, I guess, which like I said, they're all retellings of retellings of retellings. So who knows how long
Yeah.
these stories are ancient, and everything is so beautiful. And yeah, that I found that statue in just some small church, more towards more away from the center, um, and I was just like, wow, it's just so beautiful. And my girlfriend was just like telling me the story of this behind this, and describing me the kinds of texts that Saint Teresa wrote, which I ended up using in the album. The All the voice bits and all the texts are specifically from those writings. So
Oh,
their
okay.
adaptation and their edits and adaptations from those writings. I just removed the parts that I thought were more, I guess, beautiful, just dreamlike and more impactful.
Yeah.
You can remove them from there, and they just feel very meaningful, even outside the the religion they might be. It was just such a beautiful text and such a beautiful statue. So yeah, it was just I guess I stumbled upon it basically. So
Yeah, that was my
that's kind of
experience in Rome too. I just would just go out and sort of wander around, and you're just constantly stumbling upon beautiful, amazing things throughout the whole
yeah,
situation there.
it's
And so, if you don't mind saying, what was the specific reason that you were in Rome? Is that anything that you'd be interested in mentioning to us, or?
I,
you know.
I was really there just to see things, just go into the museums and see the churches and go to the Vatican and just see everything.
Okay.
And everything. Like I said, everything just very appealing, even for someone who isn't religious. It's like the art
Yeah.
itself and the architecture and the stories and the myths and the archetypes behind those stories are so universal and so um, just so beautiful that you can't help but want to look at it. You can I think, at least for me, you can kind of separate the art and the creators and the ancient stories and what they mean and what's behind them to the actual institution. The actual institution, people will have different opinions over it, but for me, I just wanted to see the art itself and the places and everything. It's a thing that I'm very drawn into. I just specifically like Christian art and Christian myth archetypes very much, and
Yeah.
it influenced me a lot in the previous album, Two Heralds, which was also touching on those topics, not as specific, I guess, but on a more broad um, scope, looking into those kinds of themes. So yeah,
Yeah, that's really cool. Are you familiar at all with Hildegard von Bingen?
I can say I am. No.
Well, you should look into her then also. That I that could be that could be your next album. Although we'll get into that later. And obviously, I'm not telling you what to do with your music, but it's her. She basically made music back. She made like chants or hymns or whatever you want to call them, like back in maybe the 11th century, 12th century, something like that. And she was like a Christian mystic as well, and sort of said that she got her lyrics directly from God, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
there was an album that came out sometime in the mid 2000s that was David Lynch basically did like the dark ambient music for it, and there was like a some girl like I don't know, I want to say like an opera singer, but not really, like, some sort of like a hymn singer, and she sang all of Hildegard von Bingen's songs, and it was a really beautiful situation. So that's cool because I didn't know about the Saint Teresa situation, and you don't know about the Hildegard von Bingen, so that's kind of cool. I figured I'd share a little bit back with you since you've enlightened me on the other one. But I totally agree with you that regardless of how you feel about Christianity, it's just going to Rome and seeing all of those different Christian things that are happening there it is a really beautiful and humbling experience, regardless of your feelings on the actual religion itself. Just the art and the culture and everything that goes along with it is pretty cool from an insider or outsider's perspective, I would say.
Absolutely.
So I guess I wanted to ask you. There's a lot of things happening on this album, which is really cool. I really like dark ambient albums with a lot of real instruments, and having that combined with something that's fit to land on cryo chamber makes it just that much more enriching for me. I guess would be the word to use. So I specifically we have Jan here of Svartsen that said greetings Pedro and Michael, greetings to you Jan and to everybody else here
Yeah.
in chat. So I was just talking to him recently about his work with Amund Ovestad. So Amund is also on this new album of yours playing cello, and I see also he's used his voice on here. So I thought I'd ask you specifically about Amund first, just because we'd already been discussing him in a recent interview. How you got in contact with him, and what sort of like what role he had in the album, or whatever you feel like saying about him, really.
Well, it's all actually very tied together because I yeah. Jan is calling me a cellist.
Yeah.
Well, he can't though, because he's the one that recommended me Amund some years ago
Nice.
when I was doing my second album. self-destruction themes. I was I was looking into getting someone to play some cello parts, a string player, and I don't quite remember how it went, but I think I asked vaguely in the group, maybe, or maybe I talked to Jan. I'm not sure, but Jan is the one who recommended me Amund, because he already knew him and he already had done some stuff with him. So I just talked to Amund, and Amund is like the nicest guy in the world,
Yeah, he
and
is.
he's just like very open to collaborating and listening to stuff and contributing to it. So he entered on my second album back in 2015.
I
Yeah,
forgot that he was part of that album. That's cool.
yeah, it's so he's been collaborating with Wordclock since the second one, and then he also entered Herald's, the third one, and then again on this last one, a great bliss.
Fantastic.
So he's just been collaborating with me all this time, and he's just Amon is he has this very rare talent to just understand what you want. So
Yeah.
like you show him the things and you vaguely tell him what you want, and maybe you tell him a few things, and I was thinking about this and that, and he just absolutely understands and gets the intention and the vibe of the thing. And Jan will probably relate to this. He's
Yes, he
just
is
like,
doing that right now.
yeah, there you are. Exactly. So he has this very rare talent to just get it, and it's been amazing. Amund is a great cellist, and he's a great musician and composer, and a pretty cool guy. And on this last album, he not only played the cello, and he played on various tracks, various fragments. He also played a specific arrangement that I wrote, which is one of the tracks, which is called Beatific. So he had the patience to record that for me, which was also, uh, you know, it takes a while to record something with like five voices or all of that. But he also contributed with the voice. So all the voice fragments in the album is Almond. Because
Oh,
my
okay.
voice wasn't all that great. I tried my own voice. I wasn't enjoying it.
After
So I
talking to
thought
you, I was listening to the music and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not him.
it's not. That's because it's not me. I had all the text written out, all the bits I wanted to use and that I wanted to explore, and I sent it all to Almond. And I said, "Could you record this for me, please?" And he was very kind to actually do it and send it back. And then I just like experimented with it, processed the voice in some different ways, and eventually arrived at what's in the album. So you already listened to the album fully. Other people haven't yet, but eventually they'll understand.
Yes.
There's a specific track. Yeah, there's a specific track towards the end that has a very strong voice part that is very. It's the centerpiece of one of the tracks, and that was all Almond.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
not that my brother is like the authority on dark ambient or anything, but we were listening to the album on the way to my mom's house a couple days ago, and that part came on, and he's like, "This is how you do vocals with music. This is how you put a voice in dark ambient music. This is what it's supposed to sound like." And I didn't even ask him; like he just like we're just like sitting there in silence driving down the road, and that was what he said. So I was like, yeah, I agree with you, man. It does sound really really nice. It's a fantastic album. Like I said, since you sent it to me the other day, I've listened at least 10 times now to the whole thing through. So
thank you.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
very
man,
glad.
when I find one that I really love, I mean, if I'm considering something, I'm gonna listen to it at least 2 or 3 times at least. But yeah, I mean, I'm just this thing just it just keeps going. Same thing with Harold's. Like that's something I guess I'll go ahead and ask you now. We can get back to talking specifically about this album. Heralds and A Greater Bliss are like quite different than what you had done before them. They're also quite different from each other, but they're sort of much more active. Your first two albums, as well as your soundtrack that I wanted to ask about also, but your first two albums specifically were more or less, standard dark ambient. I don't want to say like blah, but that's not what I mean at all. I just mean it fit the framework of dark ambient exactly how it was supposed to. Whereas these two albums really push the boundaries of the genre and start pushing into like, I mean, I would say specifically more dark jazz territory with a lot of it, which I absolutely love that it's pushing into that direction. But what kind of made you decide that you wanted to just really just go crazy with it after your first hopping in and getting used to the community and getting used to making dark ambient albums, and then you're like, okay, I'm just going totally off the wall with this next one with Heralds. What made you do that?
It's hard to explain, but I get after I do something, um, and I figure out how to do that certain thing, and I did a specific sound on an album. Let us say the first album I did, I very rarely I have any desire to go back and do more of the same. I usually I get bored very easily, so I need to come up with different things for myself to do, and different I guess music scenarios to explore, and basically that's that's how those wild style changes happen, and with each album I guess I just I want things to be larger in a way. I want more things to do, and I gather more information, and I learn from my previous mistakes on other albums, or of things I wish I had done differently, or things I wish I knew how to do. And over time, as I guess skills develop, I just want to add those things into the music. So the albums just got, I guess, bigger in scope with with each one, and production time too. My first album, Endless, I think it was my shortest production time on an album ever. And Simon might remember this. It was like 2 weeks maybe. I had like two tracks before that, and in like 2 weeks I was just doing that, and I ended up making that album and sending to Simon, and
Holy
Simon
crap.
was like, uh, you know, amazing as always, and welcoming, and just took it in and released it, and then as albums progressed, that just got different. I added more people, and then on the second album I added Amund alongside with me, right, and a couple of other people collaborated on it, on that album too. So Robert from Apocryphos also collaborated on that album on the first track. He sent some really nice um, guitar parts that he did for that first track, and Simon was on that album too on one of the tracks as a small collaboration. And then once I had done the second album, I really just wanted to just go do something different. I wanted to explore something that was uh, harder, or not, maybe that's not the best way to describe it, but in a way harder to achieve, or and I
You were
wanted to
pushing your own
do,
boundaries.
yeah, trying to push what can I do with these genres of music, and what can I actually do myself as a musician. And the number of people that play in each of the albums just grows
Yeah.
exponentially.
Yeah.
So it's just me in the beginning, then Amund, and a couple of collaborators in a couple of tracks, and then by Heralds I had more people collaborating. It was Amund, and then a friend of mine, Nuno, was playing it too. He was playing the Nickel harpa. And George, I hope I'm saying his name right. Shamanauri, I'm not sure.
That's how I
He's,
say it in my head.
yeah, that's how I
From
say it.
Phonotech.
From Phonotech, which some of the people might know. He also played in that album, and then this album is just a whole array of fantastic musicians that I'm grateful enough to have alongside of me to just elevate everything.
Yeah, so you were just saying there that you put together Endless in basically 2 weeks, and I wonder if you would mind telling us how old were you when you wrote Endless?
It was 2014, so I was 19 or 18, I guess.
Yeah, 18 or 19. That's pretty awesome,
Yeah,
man.
around.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure you're the youngest dark ambient musician that has any level of standing in the community. I'm pretty sure you've got that. Pretty sure you've got that badge. So,
Yeah, I don't know.
I
There's
mean,
probably a lot of talented young people
I
out there.
loved, yeah, but they're not necessarily like, you know, they're not on Cryo Chamber or Cyclic Law or Malignant or you know what I mean. Like, I'm sure there are some other great young artists out there, but they don't have the recognition that you do. So, I think that you know, it's sort of like the whimsy of age that made you do it that quickly, I think, to a certain extent, but at the same time it was such a great album. And like I was saying to you before, like, you know, Simon really loved that album and I really loved that album, and like he, you know, he was like, this one's something special, you know. And he was like, this young guy just killed it with this thing, you know. And so, and I listened to it and I'm like, yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, and yeah, that was in 2014. I was thinking it was a little bit later than that, but yeah, I mean, that was one of the first albums that I was really listening to in great detail. And I was just looking back there. I couldn't remember if I had actually reviewed it or not. And I think it came out so early that I wasn't even reviewing yet. That I was like really starting to get deep into the genre, because I wanted to say, because I was interested to see. I used to, when I worked for Terra Relicta, I had to score my reviews 1 through 10 ratings, so I was gonna see what I had rated it if I had reviewed it, because I'm like, if an 18-year-old kid wrote this album in 2 weeks and I gave it like a 9 or a 10 out of 10, you know what I mean. But yeah, I mean,
I have
it's pretty awesome.
I have a weird relationship with that album because nowadays I can't quite listen to it because for me it's just like uh, just screams of young dude making reckless production,
Yeah, I
banging
mean,
out tracks. They don't have they. I and don't get me wrong. I'm very happy that it was enjoyed by by the crowd of dark ambient fans and that it was taken in with um, in such an amazing label. That was the weirdest part for me, that Cryo Chamber that Simon accepted the album at all. But yeah, nowadays it's very hard for me to listen to that one because and maybe it's because I did it, but I just I don't know. It's not my favorite one personally, but
I can
I'm very
understand
glad.
that.
Yeah,
From a personal perspective, you know, you can see the things about it that other people aren't going to notice, you know.
yeah,
The things that you're like, "Oh, I would have done this differently now." You know, we don't know any different.
yeah.
We don't know what you would do different. And you've changed so much that it's like, honestly, you know, it would be hard to say how you would do a totally standard dark ambient album differently now. And, you know, I'm sure probably one day we're going to find that out. I imagine there's going to come a point where you are going to want to just say like, what if I go back and do like a more subtle thing again, and then, you know, then we'll have something to compare it to. But as things stand, each, as you said, each album changes so much that it's really hard to compare it against your current work, because it's almost like just totally new. Just, it's so, you know, everything that you do just ends up being so new from the thing before it, which is awesome to me, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
And, well, who knows? I'm not at the moment. I have no clue what I'm gonna do next, which is always what happens after I finish one of the albums. Just I'm left just thinking I don't know what to do now.
yeah.
I don't really have any idea, so I have no clue where I'll go next. But yeah, let us see.
So
Maybe someday down the road.
from a technical perspective, would you mind sharing like what like your main DAW or DAW program would be that you use, and if it was the same thing back then as it is now, and just if you're like the sort of gears of things that you do, has that changed very much, or is it just like the expression that you would have used, if that makes sense?
It makes sense. I understand. Yeah, everything changed a lot since that first one. I was, like I said, I was very young. I didn't know really what I was doing. I was just like throwing things at the wall and see what sticks, in a way. And it was right around when I was in starting my second year of university, and what I studied, and since I was 18 all the way to now, and I'm 26 now, everything has changed. I guess the things I use, the DAWs I use, the materials I use, the instruments I use, what I do know, what I don't know from a technical point of view, either production or music. Uh, the Everything has changed wildly. At the beginning, I was making music on FL Studio.
Okay.
Uh, that was my first DAW, and it was FL Studio, a bunch of audio files, and some processing. I had some reverbs and some EQs and some stuff. It was all very simple actually, and it was all about warping audio at that point. And as things evolved from there, I started using Logic, which is what I use nowadays. Logic Pro, and I guess the amount of things I knew technically, and also the amount of music I listened to, and everything expanded widely. So when I was 18, it was still a little too narrow my scope of music. I wasn't exploring every possible style. And during university, I got this period where I opened up into just a ton of different styles and ton of different things, and my musical knowledge in a way just grew over the years. And then I started working as a composer, which is what I do nowadays, and that also affected it a lot. So the fact that I'm working on this all the time, every day, means that what I know now at 26 is wildly different from what I knew then at 18, when I was just figuring out how all of this works. So yeah, nowadays it's a bit more complex. There's more instruments, more things I want to do, more things I want to learn, and all that kind of stuff.
Now, you just said you started working as a composer. Do you mean like within your Wordclock project or outside of Dark Ambient?
Outside of dark ambient, really.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, if you wouldn't mind, talk about that a little bit. I know nothing about this.
so I studied music production in university,
Oh, okay.
and when I finished that, uh, actually, still while I was in university, I had already began trying to find my way into the world of being a composer and sound designer for media, for film or image. And I did a couple of like short films that weren't very good. It's kind of very very shitty short films that
Yeah.
a person begins with, and
Were
that
they
kind of
your own
stuff.
short films, or were you hopping onto somebody else's project?
No. Other people's
Okay.
students and whatnot.
Yeah.
And by some miracle, when I was in university, I think it was during my second album that I was trying to hustle in my way into that world. And I was like just randomly, like an idiot, just messaging and sending out emails to like random game developers, indie game developers, and people who were doing short films in the hopes that someone will give a shit
Yeah.
to let me, try to do that. And it's really wild. The One of the few responses I got was from a game developer, very indie. It was a team of 2 people that was doing a game called Knocked early on. So I found my way into that, and I was like, cool, finally I have a project to do.
Yeah.
Everything was just so weird from there, because that project got associated with Devolver Digital, the publisher, the game publisher of indie games, and that was like a super leap in terms of exposure. And all of a sudden, that's when I was starting to work on a soundtrack to that. And Chris, who was the main developer of that game, talked to me like, "Hey, do you know Nine Inch Nails?" And I was like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
of course." And it's like, Devolver. I think it was someone at Devolver that knew Robin Fink, which is the guitar player of Nine Inch Nails,
Yeah.
and he was trying to get into the world of composing for video games. And for some reason, he ended up in Devolver, and Devolver was, I'm not sure, but I guess they were talking to all of their developers, seeing if anyone was interested in giving that a shot. And Chris was like, "Hey, do you want to try and compose with this guy?" And I was, as a young musician, I was like, "Yes, please."
Seriously, man.
So
Oh my
it was
god.
absolute, just a shot in the dark, really, that such a thing would happen. Like getting to work with an actual pro in music, and doing that soundtrack alongside someone whose music you've listened to.
Yeah.
Right? It was like I couldn't. Just so weird that when that was happening, it just blew my mind, and that was my.
Yeah, teenage me is getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it.
Yeah, it was wild. It was really wild, man. But that was in a way my ticket into the world of music composition and sound design, because I that gave me a lot of leverage into to go talk to people and get them to accept me for an internship, maybe,
Hmm.
because there's an important
Yeah, that's
name, I guess.
you're connected to, yeah, I mean, in the dark ambient side you're connected to Cryo Chamber, and then in the gaming side you're connected to Robin Fink of Nine Inch Nails, so it's
Yeah,
like
I could attach a big name,
you
I guess.
got these two different areas that you're working in, and you've got huge names in both areas that you're attached to, like that somebody at your age should have had no business having a resume like that.
And I had no business being there, man. I had no clue what I was doing most of the time, really.
I don't think
And
that's
it was
true.
just,
You didn't. Yeah, I don't know. People wouldn't have had you doing what you're doing if you didn't know what you were doing. But you seem like a humble guy, so that's okay.
listen, I just got lucky on that one, really, because that thing fell on my head, basically. And that allowed me to, after I finished university, that allowed me to find an internship at a composition and music composition and sound design studio in London. So I went there for a while to work and kind of learn as much as I could, and things just kind of evolved from there. And I went from that place then back to Portugal to another music composition and sound design studio, and I worked there already as a sort of in-house composer. And these was all things that were for like branding, so very widely, just completely off I guess, dark ambient or experimental music or anything really. It was really just straight up music production for branding and television and things like that. And that got my way into being an assistant composer for people that were working on film and television. So, and things just kind of progress over time, and that's how I found my way into doing that work. So that's what I do nowadays. I do music composition for sometimes as additional music, sometimes as composer, sometimes as assistant composer for film and television and that sort of deal. So soundtracking basically is what I'm doing nowadays, and that is very largely influenced my I guess my abilities as a producer and as a composer, and the just influence everything I do nowadays. So I don't think that without that kind of learning and constant exposure to working with that different styles of music composition and different styles of production, I don't think I would be able to do anything nowadays. So that's where I got all of my learning was through working as an assistant and then as a composer and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's how I got into it.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So yeah, I mean that brings things into perspective with all these different people that you're working with on this newest album, because I guess you can tell me how it works, but I'm assuming that my initial assumption was you just kind of had some level of respect for these musicians and said, do your thing on here and make it sound nice. But now I'm starting to think that you really maybe sort of told these people, this is the thing I want you to do. So maybe if you'd like to go into the way that you worked, maybe now is a good time for you to sort of explain sort of the gears of how you've worked with some of these other artists on your latest album.
It's I'm not very like when I collaborate with these musicians, they're all incredibly talented people, and I don't tell them I want you to do this or I want you to do that.
Oh, okay.
I really want their input as performers of their instruments.
Okay.
Uh, I show them my tracks, and that's how it worked before, and that's still how it works when I for example, when I talk to Amund, I show him my tracks and I ask his opinion, and what I say, I give vague guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like this to do this sort of thing. I'm thinking that sort of thing. Maybe I would like it to go here and there, and I provide some guidelines. But then Amund has much better ideas than I do, anyway. So he offered me is just a bunch of different extended techniques on the cello and ways of playing things that I didn't think about that he knows as a performer of those instruments that just make everything so much better. And the same applies towards uh, most of the collaborations. Each collaboration is of a different nature because that the collaboration with Amon is sort of like that, and I had the pleasure of having him in my studio. So he came to Porto to record a bunch of things for this album.
Oh, that's awesome. That helps a lot.
It's really nice. And
Yeah.
for example, and some other musicians, I'm more looking towards recording a bunch of things even unrelated to the music. Like with the percussions on this album, I got a friend of mine, Luis. We just I didn't even show him the tracks. we didn't want the tracks. We recorded just a very extensive database of sounds of like weird percussions and drums. And the idea was to record all of that, and then later on I'll take all of those files and sort of arrange them and use those as my own personal bank of instruments to place the percussions how I want them. And he also recorded a bunch of like very free form fills and little sounds and little things and cool ideas that he had.
Yeah, that's a good
Some
idea.
that I brought into the album later on and used that as percussion, and then with George from Phonotech, he he just has, he has just an amazing talent for melodies. So I
Yeah,
just
he
gave him the
does.
tracks. So I gave him the tracks that by that point they were pretty, evolved. They all of the structure and things and sounds were there, and just played beautiful things on top of it, and gave me some ideas, and recorded a couple of different versions and different I guess effects that he also had there that he uses for Phonotek. So each collaboration is different, but what I'm interested in the collaborations is to have the the input of the people, and have them give me some insights and some ideas of their own with their instruments on what can be added to this, and they did amazing, and I'm super grateful to all of them, because they without them, this album wouldn't exist. This album exists because of this collaboration with everyone, and everyone doing amazing work, and just playing incredible stuff. So yeah, I'm usually grateful to all of them, and I'm not very strict with collaborations. I'm looking for that for those external ideas that I haven't thought about. So yeah, that's how that happens.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would think if I were making music, I would want to take the same direction that you're saying, where you just kind of you just say, "Hey, here's the thing. Here's my thoughts on the thing. Now make your magic happen." you know, um, as opposed to. But I also don't know how to write music, like actually compose music. So I feel like if I did, then or since you do, like maybe you would have taken that direction of just like literally just writing the whole thing out and saying here's your part. you know just read the music off the paper and play it. I could like that's I could see either of those being a possibility. So yeah, thank you for going into detail on that. And I really feel like I don't want to make comparisons really, but if I were to compare this album to any other dark ambient music, I would compare it the most to Phonotech. Not so much in the exact way that it works, but just as I said, there's that sort of element of dark jazz in there that's very dark ambient and experimental, and not so much like your songs sound like his songs, but you guys just like the sort of like the seeding elements of it seem to have like they seem to be coming from the same sort of origins or whatever. So I think that's really cool, for one, that you have him involved in it, and for two, that you said it really had progressed a long way before he ever was even giving his input on it. So I think that's really awesome that you did have him on it, and as you said, his work is really amazing, and it definitely brings some interesting life into the album.
Yeah, he played it. It played quite beautifully with the saxophone. The saxophone is played by Travis LaPlante, which is he's an American saxophonist, and he's just stupidly talented. It's insane. He just plays beautifully, and the both George and Travis's work complemented each other quite beautifully.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's
Yeah,
quite a nice surprise for me while I was doing it, how well things merged and blended together.
yeah. My biggest complaint with the album is that it's not 6 hours long.
Yeah,
like seriously, that's the thing that I'm thinking when I'm listening to it. Like I could just listen to every single one of these tracks all night long. Like
thank you.
every track could just be a full album, and I would be happy with that. like what is it
I'm
like?
not making a 6 hour album anytime soon, but I'm glad that you enjoyed it so much.
yeah. So I don't like I don't really know what the Santor or the Saz are. I'm asking this because we've spoken about what the other people have played now on the album. You are the composer, engineer, electronics, synths, guitar, and bass, but then also Santor and Saz. So if you would like to, I'm sure probably other people also. Some people I'm sure know what they are, but for those of us that don't, maybe you could explain those two things.
So when I was doing this album, I wanted it to be influenced by a lot more of, I guess, in a way, traditional instruments or traditional music. And I was looking for, in a very vague way, I knew I wanted things that were able to do some swelling motions and some very bright, plucky, and just beautiful sounds with that characteristic of traditional attached to it. And the what I looked towards first was some sort of dulcimer. You know, the dulcimer is that instrument you play with two little hammers
Mm-hmm.
and you hammer on the strings. And I found out about this instrument, which is called a santur, which is basically that, but it's the Middle Eastern version of.
Ah.
Actually, I can show it because it's
Yeah, that'd be cool.
so. This thing right here,
Oh man, that looks awesome.
it's just like a bunch of strings, and you play these with two little hammers on top, and it's in a way, I guess, a sort of percussion string element.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I fell in love with that instrument because it had all the qualities of a dulcimer, but at the same time, it sounded so different, and it has this very particular sound to it that which it's because the grouping of the strings are different. So for each note, there are four strings tuned to
Ah.
the same note,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
so it gives it a very very lush sound, very interesting sonic qualities, and it was just perfect to build up those kind of swelling motions. And I use it on every single track, on all the time, all of those sounds that are just very plucky and coming from everywhere, like a cloud of instruments came from that instrument right there. And the other instruments I played of that are traditional was the saz, which is a also a Middle Eastern version of, I guess, a very ancient lute. I have it here too, which is this
Oh
little
yeah, I
thing.
saw it. I could just barely see it there on the wall behind you. I thought that might have been it. That's
Which
really
is
beautiful. Both of those are beautiful.
just a
Oh, that
it's a
sounds
very
cool.
it's a very simple instrument, but it's also perfect to build up textures and build up um, clouds of sounds too. And that's those are the ones that I got and vaguely, very vaguely learned how to play for the album to just do those sort of textures. I'll just record like, I don't know, just way too many tracks of each of them. I'll just press record and play a little fragment and press record and play a little fragment and do that like about 11, 12 times with each instrument, and then build up these clouds of instrumentation that I absolutely abused throughout the whole album. I would say 'cause it's everywhere. I absolutely abuse that kind of sound. But yeah, those are the instruments that I played, and also one I didn't credit this one, but in some sections I also played a little sort of violin, which is called a Comanche, which is this one. It's this one here.
Nice.
It's a an archaic form of a violin, I would say. very archaic form, and it's an instrument that is typically. There are many variations of it. This one is more kind of like the one that is used around the Black Sea region, um, in Europe and in Asia. And I use this one the less, but I use it to like also build up some fragments of flickering sound and thrills of like things. It was all basically to build these clouds of sounds and build melodies and things that would enrich the sonic qualities of the album more towards this sense of it's traditional. It's both European but also Middle Eastern. It's I wanted to capture that sort of vibe, I guess, of instrumentation and and bring things not necessarily into just a jazz or dark jazz realm, though that is very obviously present throughout the album, especially with the kind of instrumentation that I got with saxophone and trumpet. But I thought it was very interesting to combine that with more almost religious music. And in many cases, religious music, the santur and all of these instruments are used very commonly in Iran and places like that, for some traditional religious music. So I wanted to bring everything more into those realms and include a more of an old, archaic religious music blend into contemporary jazz and dark ambient and ambience. And I thought that would make for something interesting, and that's how I ended up making the album the way it is now. That's how this album. So yeah,
Oh, one
those are the
second.
instruments I play, the acoustic ones that I played.
I can still hear you, but you dropped off of the screen for some reason there. Let me let me put the let me take this out and put it back in. Give me 1 second here.
Yeah.
Okay, now I got you back. Yeah, I don't know what that was about.
Okay. Everything going?
Yeah, I think we're good. I'm getting the size rearranged here, but we can see and hear you again now. Yeah, so you tapped into a little bit what I was getting ready to ask. If I have my history and geography correct, I know that, like, the Ottoman Empire sort of moved up into Portugal and Spain there around where you're at. So I wonder if that has any connection to why you are using various different Middle Eastern instruments, if there's like a family heritage relation involved in that, or if it's just cool stuff that you found along the way that you wanted to use.
Yeah, there's no family heritage or anything like that. Portugal is a country that is very influenced by that culture of the Ottoman Empire, the Arabic countries that took hold of the peninsula for a while. But I guess that's more evident in the southern parts of the country. But in any case, that wasn't necessarily it for me. It was more I was looking to amplify the kinds of instruments and the kinds of sounds. I was looking for something interesting, something that sounded interesting to me at least, and I didn't want to repeat the same instrumentations I did before. So I wanted different things, and um, I found these instruments, and I thought they fitted perfectly into the themes. Both in the quality of the sounds they make, and also, I guess, the regions they come from, the Middle East and these. the Black Sea and everything. It's all very tied into the history of Europe and the history of the stories that form Christianity. Really, they all come from there. So I thought it was just an interesting collection of instruments
Yeah,
to use alongside something else like modern contemporary jazz and ambient and dark ambient. Um, so I was interested in blending those things, and along the way also taking advantage of um, I guess in a way Catholic or Christian musical ideas uh, in the way they build up melodies and things like that, which influenced me a lot too in making this album. So it's a weird blend of all of these things that for me it was very interesting to explore, and that's how that came about really. So that's how I got all of these instruments.
yeah, that's really cool. I would personally love to hear you do more with those instruments, even in like a traditional sense. Again, not that I'm telling you what to do, and you probably aren't even interested in that kind of thing. But to me, like, I listen to a lot of traditional Sufi music often. Like, I really love, like, I love all sorts of different Middle Eastern music and Indian music. I mean, today, like, leading up to the interview, I was listening to like sitar music for like the last like 4 hours before we went live. So
Yeah,
I really love a lot of different traditional styles of instruments. So that's really cool that you use those, and that I would say certainly adds into what I like so much about that album. Without, you know, they weren't like up front, but you know, you just kind of get the feel of them being in there. You know, the
yeah,
way that you build it into the production.
yeah. I scattered them all around. Like I said, I have absolutely abused. Once I found out the kind of things I wanted to do and what I could do with these instruments, I built up a bunch of different atmospheres and motions and musical fragments and melodies. I scattered them all through the album. I just played it everywhere because I just enjoy this particular mix of things so much, and for me it tied so well into the electronic side of it, which in a way I guess it's not too evident when you listen to the album because I think things blend quite nicely in a way that it's hard to tell where the electronic side begins and where the acoustic side begins,
Yeah, I
where
agree.
each ends. So, and there's a lot of electronic presence on this album that is not obvious, but it's definitely there. There's just a bunch of synths and just tape played a huge part in these too. Just all of those sounds, and for me, the combination of all of these things just was very exciting. So, um, and that's at least for me, that's the hardest part to understand about the album you're making, which is what is this supposed to be? What is this sound palette of this? What am I trying to do really? And it's just a bunch of experimenting with instrumentations and sounds. And for the longest while, I wasn't really doing tracks. I was just doing sounds. I was doing fragments, I guess, little melodies or little motions, and I would save those. And later on, I'll try to figure out is that what I want to do or not? What works? What doesn't? And um, it took me maybe a bit too long to do that because it's been 4 years meanwhile. But
Yeah, it didn't feel like it's been that long since your last album. I was looking on Discogs just to, because like I thought, I don't know, the last couple of years, especially with, you know, the way that it's been, just these last couple of years just flew by. I thought they would go slower, but they feel like they went really, really fast.
it's the opposite, man. It's just you blink and it's gone,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, so
Yeah, it's been 4 years.
yeah, that was the thing I was going to ask was you said that you'd been working on the album for a long time. Did you start on this as soon as you finished Harold's, or did you start on this before you finished Harold's? Or, you know, were you
No,
working on those ones simultaneously, or did this happen afterward?
absolutely not. It was after Herald's.
Okay.
So after Herald's, I had a period of time where I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, and it kind of derailed my motivation in for a while because I just couldn't figure out um, what kind of sound to build or what I was interested in, and I was trying to figure out exactly what to do next. Am I gonna make a Wordclock album? Am I gonna do something else? Do I even feel like doing anything? So there was a period there after Herald's when I was a bit lost in what to do, and I guess there wasn't a point where I just began the next album. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, now begins the next album. It began as a I'm just gonna do small things. I'm gonna experiment. I'm gonna buy new instruments. I'm gonna buy new material. I'm gonna just play around with it, and maybe through that, and also listen to more music, listen to different music, and maybe through all of that, I'll find some sort of I guess inspiration or idea of what I wanted to do, really. So there wasn't a specific point where it began. It was after Harold's for sure, but it began very slowly with bits and pieces, and I didn't know what they were. And then eventually I came across a theme that I was very powerful and very appealing to me that I wanted to explore. And I guess that's actually the point where things kind of started to make sense to me. Like, oh, okay, I think this is what I'm doing. I think this is what I want to do. I've done these couple of tests, and maybe there's something interesting there with this idea, and I think I'm gonna try it out. And then slowly things build, and eventually, it led up to this album, really. You know, and along the way there were many tracks that were lost forever, never to be heard by the public. But yeah, it was a whole process that I guess I it was my first experience with Wordclock dealing with that because my first albums were very one after the other, right? Because I did one in 2014, then 2015 it was the second one, and then the third one was 2017, right? And then 4 years. It took me 4 years to get this one out because it felt like it was becoming harder and harder to figure out the kind of things I want to do. And there, I think every musician comes across this phase where they suddenly find a wall, and maybe they've done 2 or 3 albums before, but suddenly their knowledge of music and production is increasing, and they're more aware of what they're capable of. They're more aware of the things they wish they could do or wanted to do. Things get more, I guess, demoralizing in a way. At least with a lot of my friends that also do music, it seems to be common that everyone gets to this phase of, man, I want to do music, but I can't right now. Like I don't know, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I want to do, and you start doubting everything you've done before. So those things naturally happen. So um, it all played a role into, I guess, why it took me longer to make this one. And I guess the increased scope too wasn't any help because things just took more time, more people to record, more things to do, then re-record, and it's a mess. But yeah, that's how it happened. 4 years down the line to find another album. But I think this is very common in young musicians to face a period like this of it's like an obstacle, I guess, that you have to overcome. And then once you get to the other side of that, things seem a little brighter. Yeah. I'm not as pessimistic now about my next album as I was about my next album after Harold's,
Yeah.
I guess. a way, if that makes any sense. I'm not sure if I'm making any
No,
sense.
I mean, to me, you're making a lot of sense because I'm just, while you're saying this, I'm just sort of thinking about my own trajectory of This Is Darkness, and it felt very similar in how you're describing it, and it also is very similar in the time scale. Like, right around the same time that you were saying you sort of started feeling like, okay, I've done everything that I wanted to do. What do I want to do next? That's basically what I was saying pretty much around the same time. And, I, for another like year or two there, I was just kind of knocking out reviews and I wasn't really feeling it like I had been previously. Like every time I wrote a review, I was just like, yeah, that one's badass. That's a good review. I wrote something awesome there. And then it just sort of felt like I was going through the motions, and then I just came to a total standstill from like 2019 until like earlier this year, and I really wasn't doing basically anything. And then I was like, I've got to do something different. Like I want to keep doing what I'm doing, but I just need to do it in a new way. And that's where I was like, I'd been watching a lot of people on Twitch, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe Twitch is the place for me to make my next step in this journalism thing. To stop sitting here behind my computer, hiding and typing, and get out in front of the camera and talk to people and talk to you guys. And it was like I've interviewed people, and it's like I send you questions, you send me answers, I type it all up, and then I press publish, and then it just sort of disappears out into the world. And I really feel like getting you on camera and like everybody gets to know you now, you know what I mean, in a way that would have been absolutely impossible through a written interview. Of course the English sound barrier ends up being a problem for a lot of people. Luckily so many of you guys speak English so well, even though it's not your first language. But if that's not a barrier, that just makes things so much more entertaining. I really like, I've got a lot more motivation now, as you said. Like once I hop back into it, then I just want to keep going. And it's like, man, I've got like 300 ideas in my head of things that I can do here in the future on this channel. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's not just musicians. I think it's any sort of an art form that you're working with. Once you feel like you've mastered the form, then you're like, okay, well, I've done it. What do I do now? What, I'm just going to do that again? I've already done it. I already did my favorite thing. What do I do now? So, yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with you. So,
and I'm glad that you started this format too, because I quite agree with you. I think this format of conversation and interview, more like a podcast, really, is so much more interesting. To if you want to know something about either a musician or whatever, or anyone that you want to hear talking about something that you enjoy, a written interview is short and doesn't offer you really the space to go deep or too deep into things. And this format at least allows you to kind of understand the people that are talking a bit more, and allows more time and more ways to get things out there, and information about what they do, and all that stuff. So I'm glad you started this. It was a pretty nice surprise in the beginning, and it's been really nice to see so many cool people coming along. And Jan has been here, and Desi Daddy Martin is. I never know how to say the second part of that. So
I say Marginus.
If he's watching,
Marginus, something like that.
Music.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all of those guys that you had in here already, yeah, and it's been really nice. So
yeah,
congratulations to you for starting this.
And congratulations to you on this new album. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm glad you're enjoying it, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. So yeah, like, so what kind of music do you listen to when you're not making music? I guess is that's a question that Devin asked like way back at the beginning, but I didn't miss your question, Devin, and I just wanted to save it until we were a bit further in, because I had so many more specific to the album questions to ask you at first there.
So what kind of music I listen to? I don't have I don't have like a specific genre. I like music overall, right? And I don't have like one or two specific genres that I follow.
Hmm.
I like listening to interesting things,
Yeah.
whatever they may be. So a lot of experimental electronic music, a lot of ambient music, a lot of contemporary jazz music, a lot of traditional music too, uh, uh, pop music too. Really, I enjoy a lot of it
Yeah.
in many styles. So I can't give you a definite answer of what I enjoy. It's a bit all over the place
Yeah.
at the moment.
I
Really.
agree. It's the same thing for me. It's so the thing that's always easier for me to answer is what I don't like, which I don't like
Okay.
modern country music. I hate modern country music, like American country music. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
so yeah. So
Uh,
what don't you
I
like?
might second you on that.
Yeah, yeah. That stuff sucks.
What I don't like, there's not a whole lot of things that I'm like, oh, I absolutely I hate this. But there's at least a couple of genres that I never never ever found anything that I enjoyed in it. That was like, oh, I actually like this song, or well, there was something interesting in that, which is reggae music. I
Yeah,
could never get into it. I
yeah,
absolutely could never. It just I just can't enjoy it. It seems so that would be what I don't enjoy, and also I guess that stupidly dull type of country music that you know
yeah.
that it feels like you have a drill in your brain. It's just awful. Just everything is the same, really.
Yeah, like I love Johnny
Yeah,
Cash for instance, but not the modern
I'm not talking
stuff.
about that kind of
Yeah,
country music. I'm talking about the
like the Garth
I don't know.
Brooks type of stuff.
I got a new pickup and
Yeah. Exactly. The funny thing about country music that I've been joking about lately is that it seems like the really like the stuff that's been coming out over the last 10 years feels like it's ripping off R&B, which I love. I love saying that. I love pointing out that it's like, this sounds exactly like an R&B hook, just not as good.
the you're talking about country music copying
Yeah.
R&B.
Yeah, I think country is currently
Yeah,
copying R&B.
in a way. I mean, the concept of genre nowadays is very different, I guess, than what genre was
Yeah,
20
yeah,
years ago.
Geist just said
Because
Nelly did a track with Tim McGraw. I didn't even think about that. There you go.
there you go, there you go. I mean, these crossovers, and especially I guess hip hop and country are both highly marketable music types, and Lil Nas X did the Old Town Road, for example,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yep, there you go. There's another example of it. Yep.
so nowadays genre is weird because internet happened, and meanwhile many years have passed, and nowadays every genre combines with every genre, and nobody seems to really give a shit anymore about whether something, oh, that was only that's so from the 80s, or that's so from the 90s. It seems nowadays like just everything is everything at the same time, and just mash everything together. So it would seem natural that the most marketable, most listen to genres would eventually clash and form.
Yeah.
Sometimes some of the most boring songs I've listened to, but
Yeah,
they're highly successful.
I'm a huge fan of
So,
the genre collisions personally. Like I listen to a lot of Ghostmain right now, which is like a combination of like
oh yeah,
basically like
yeah,
rap and new
yeah,
metal. I love Ghostmain.
yeah. I know
And
Ghostman.
yeah.
There was a period there for a while where I listened to Ghostman and some similars too, but then I got bored of it. That's my problem with it's not a problem, I guess. It is what it is with trap music, is that I with trap music I really like different styles of it, like there are many interesting mashups there, but I get bored of it so easily.
Yeah. I
Just
have like every 5 years I come in and out of loving hip hop, and then it's like, okay, I'm taking a break from that for like 5 years, and then it's like, oh, I missed that. Let me see what's happening over there again, and then I listen for another year or two, and then it's like, okay, I'm done for a few more years again.
I have the genres of music that some genres of music require a lot of focused listening, and they have a lot of content, and you listen once, twice, and those end up becoming like, at least for me, the ones I love the most and influence me the most, and the things I want to do. But then there's also the music styles that sometimes I just want to have some fun and listen to some very accessible, very easy music.
Yeah.
Almost, right. And I enjoy those music types also a lot. And like I was saying, I get very into some sort of subgenre of something in pop music, and I just listen it to exhaustion. And like a month later, I'm done with it.
Yeah.
I need a new one because I'm convinced I've listened to everything that has to offer. I just need more stuff now. I not long ago I got very into the Swedish trap artists from Dream Gang, which are people like.
I don't think I know
yes.
about that.
So you might know Young Lean.
Oh, yeah. I know, I like Young Lean. Yeah.
So Young Lean, and I got very into the friends of Young Lean.
Okay.
So there's a bunch of them. It's a whole collective of dudes making really
Nice. The
sometimes silly,
sad
but
boys or whatever they call themselves, right? Is
yeah,
it the sad boys?
yeah, Sad Boys, Dream Gang, that sort of stuff. It's very silly, very catchy, very. So
Yeah.
I got very into that. I listened that to exhaustion. I was like, okay, cool, I'm done.
Yeah, I was on a huge Grimes kick for a while. I still love Grimes, but since she got with Elon Musk, I'm kind of confused about her now.
I listened to Grimes around the era she was doing. I guess the first like Genesis and those.
Oh yeah, back at the beginning. Back when it was more like just straight up like kind of club music and not pop.
It was more sort of like indie pop electronic music. I quite enjoyed it for a while.
Yes, Grimes is definitely confused about Grimes these days. I agree with you, Mr. Geist.
Nowadays, I'm not a big fan. It's can get a little low. Someone asked me there in the comments if I'm a fan of metal, death metal, black metal at all. Man, I lived for those genres as a teenager.
Nice.
That's where I came from. Really, I listened to every type of black metal and death metal and everything for a while. And when I was a teenager, I was involved in a couple of very shitty metal bands.
Nice, as one does.
As one does, of course. So I did a whole drill. I did the whole thing. I walked the walk. So, but yeah. Nowadays, I still enjoy metal, but I enjoyed it the more. I guess for me are substantial groups. Like I really like Sumac, for example. So I still listen to quite a lot of it, and sometimes I revisit the things that I listened when I was a teenager, of course, because those don't ever leave you, right? So every once in a while, I still revisit a ton of black metal and a ton of death metal, and for a while, when I was younger, I was really into like symphonic black metal.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it was a whole thing for me, and I had a shitty band of that too. So I did a whole drill, but yeah, I can still appreciate it nowadays, and quite a lot of it. I was the biggest fan of Opeth for the longest time. I think Opeth was the reason I started learning the guitar.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, what you were playing in the bands.
Yeah, that was my first instrument. I started playing classical guitar because I went to a classical guitar school because I wanted to learn how to play the guitar because I wanted to play opus acoustic songs.
That's
That was
awesome.
basically it. And so in a way, I guess metal music got me into making music at all, right? So and metal music got me into industrial music later on, and industrial music led me to experimental and ambient and dark ambient and all of that. So
Yeah, I was going to ask you how you found how dark ambient fell into all of this mixture when you were discovering it in the first place.
Yeah.
So
I came across the other day. I was telling you sort of vaguely the story of how I came across dark ambient. I was pretty young when I must have been. I was I don't know. I think I was like 14. Maybe.
that's awesome.
It was very early on, and I used just I had stumbled into industrial music because I was discovering black metal at that time, and I stumbled into the weirdest YouTube video. That's how I discovered dark ambient. It was this very silly YouTube video that was called something like "Types of Dark Ambient" or whatever. It was a very old video. It was probably one of the OG dark ambient videos on YouTube.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I wonder if it still exists nowadays if I could find it. But the video was very basic. It had a bunch of surreal images, and I guess different vibes of images, and it had a bunch of tracks of dark ambient and industrial ambient sort of music styles, and each one of them was like, "Oh, this is dark ambient. This is blackened ambient. This is doom ambient. This is that kind of
Yeah.
like a Mojo top 10 list almost." And that's how I came across the genre. I was listening to that video and I was like, "What the fuck is this? I've never listened to this in my life. This is so weird." But then I listened to it a second time, and then I saw another video, and then I stumbled into artists that I really enjoyed. So the first ones would have been, besides Lustmore, which was the most obvious, especially at the time, the biggest name.
Mm-hmm.
The first one I stumbled into was Atrium Carcery.
Nice. Yeah.
So Simon's music, which was the one I got attached to the most because I was like, "Oh, I love this. I love this one in specific." And the first track that I listened to from Simon was End Titles, a track called End Titles. And I love that track so much. I kept listening to it, and then I got really into his music. And at the same time, the other two that I got really into were Beyond Sensory Experience.
Oh yeah, I love them.
Yeah, and Desi Daddy. So those three sort of were the main ones that I was like really, really into. That got me into the whole world of electronic music and dark ambient and experimental music. So yeah, I was absolutely glued to them for a while.
Have you heard the new Desideri Marginis track on the Epicurean album? It's a collaboration that just came out. Time Ends, a tribute to J.G. Ballard's tetralogies of transformation.
I have not. Not.
Oh my god, this new track it's potentially my favorite track he's ever done. Pulling the album up here so I can, if it wants to. Bandcamp is going slow for me here for some reason.
Listen to that later on, but yeah, I love. I really love these music, and what they had in common, I guess, Atrium Carcery, Simon's, right, and Desider's music had in common was that they were more melodic in nature. Almost, they had more musical qualities built into them. A lot of the other dark ambient artists were very drone and just the ambience focused, and Atrium Carcery had a ton of elements there that were very interesting, very compelling, and Desi Daddy too. And I was just like absolutely stunned by that at the time, and I listened to them to exhaustion. Beyond Sensory Experience too, and I still absolutely love Beyond Sensory Experience to this day. I believe they are one of the most unique.
That's what I was going to
groups
say. They're very unique.
They're extremely unique in everything. The sounds they use, the way they build up the albums, the way they build up tracks and everything. And they were an incredible influence on me, especially early on. Like I really wanted to early on. I wanted to do things exactly like Beyond Sensory Experience and Desi and Simon, except I didn't have the skills to do it. So I ended up doing whatever I did. But what I wanted to do was that sort of thing. But yeah, still to this day, I love Beyond Sensory Experience.
Yeah, for me, I just pulled it up here. The End of It All is my personal favorite album by them on Cyclic Law that came out back in 2016. I love that album so much.
Yeah, it's one of the more recent ones, I guess. What year is it? I don't even remember.
What was that?
What year is that one?
Oh, that was 2016. Yeah, that was June of 2016.
There you go. Yeah, and for me the ones that I'll be glued over in my life would be that would be The Pursuit of Pleasure and The Dull Routine of Existence and No Lights in Their Eyes, right? So those are the ones that I was like absolutely stunned. Still to this day, I love them. There's always like once a year I'll go back and listen to those albums, and for some reason it seems I'm very drawn into the albums that came around 2008, because that was when I was also, I guess, discovering many of these styles. So those albums around 2008, 2007, something like that, I was really into those, and yeah. I'll forever love their music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of all these artists.
Yeah, I'm super jealous of you finding dark ambient at 14 years old. Like I said, I didn't find it until I was like 33.
What matters is that you found it.
Yeah. Well, I'm making up for lost time. That's literally why I started writing about it. I'm like, God damn it. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that some other 14-year-old doesn't have to wait another 20 years to find out about this music. Because 14-year-old me would have rather been listening to that than, I would have much rather been listening to Lustmord and Desideri Marginis and Rajon d'etre than listening to Marilyn Manson and Rammstein. I would have much rather.
Because, at that time, I discovered that style and I would listen to it, but I was still, the main thing I was listening to when I was 14 years, and onwards was still metal music and different types of metal music.
Yeah.
Was still like the main thing that I would listen to, right? And then I also listened to all these things that just grew on me over time. And for a while too, it was very hard for me to find artists in dark ambient that I like, because I found Atrium Carcery, I found Desideri, I found Beyond Sensory Experience, and I was like, anything that is not as good as this, I'm not gonna like it. So I was like, I want more things that are as great as this. And then eventually I found more artists, and my knowledge of, I guess, the genre grew over time. And from dark ambient, I ended up listening to a lot of, I guess, experimental music and ambient music beyond dark ambient. So I guess the main point of reference when I was in university would have been Tim Hacker, for example. So I'm a huge fan of Tim Hacker's music, and I think that in a large way that has probably influenced me a lot into what I do. Those kind of guys they're not in dark ambient, but they're in other types of ambient music. So, Team Hacker and also Ben Frost
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
while. All of those, and at the time, I got I got the opportunity to see all of those live because here in Porto there was a festival called Amplifest, and it would it would gather a lot of acts from metal music that were more on the fringes of metal music, I guess, and subgenres of metal music like Amun Ra and the guys from Church of Ra, and at the same time they would also bring acts from electronic music and experimental music like Team Hacker and Band Frost and Prurient, which is more on the noise side, I guess. But
Yeah.
and all those guys and Etrea Sectori too.
Yeah, I love
From
Treya Sectori so much.
all
Oh
of
my
those
god.
things passed through Porto when I was studying music. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah, my interest in all of those just grew exponentially from there because I saw them live and I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. I want to hear more of this. And the next year is like these artists I really like is coming to town. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Someone said it
that is really
that
cool.
that sounds like a hell of a festival. It was.
Yeah, for
It was
sure.
really. It was a really cool festival. I nowadays I don't go I don't really go to it as much, and they had to cancel for a couple of years too, and pandemic and other stuff, and they kind of started repeating a lot of the acts that I already seen, so I kind of lost more interest. But the festival is still pretty cool for whoever likes those styles of music, and not only they also brought Swans in the same festival,
Awesome.
and I'm a big fan of Swans too, so that was also amazing. And I guess Swans also might subconsciously play some sort of role in the things I enjoy doing because I really enjoy the way Swans build up, the way they build up mass of sound, I guess, and use different instrumentations too. So I'm really a big fan of that too. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, a couple more questions I wanted to ask you about this new album. I noticed that, I mean, usually Simon always, not always, but pretty exclusively, he does the album art and the mastering. And
Yeah.
you have two different people doing the album art and the mastering for this one. So, if you wanted to talk a little bit about the artwork that David Glumba did and the design by Alter System, and just sort of how you came to that idea, maybe of using that.
Yeah. Well, I arrived at David because very early on I figured out I wanted to try out a different kind of look. I wanted to have a commissioned painting for this, so I wanted that sort of archaic style of more traditional painting uh, to be done for this album, and I knew very early on that I wanted that kind of look in it. And Simon is a really great artist, and he deals more with digital
Yeah.
digital art and all the kinds of covers we are used to seeing on Cryo Chamber.
Hmm.
So I started reaching out to a bunch of artists, like trying to figure out who I could commission a painting to of that style. And it's actually it's a tragic story in a way because the first person I talked to was oh man, I'm forgetting his name all of a sudden. Uh, Dennis Forcas. So he painted the cover on Behemoth's some of Behemoth's latest albums.
Oh, that's cool.
He's he's a really fantastic artist, but uh, I tried to reach. I got in touch with him. I tried to commission, but then that fell through, and I was like, well, no, I don't know who to look for. I need to find more artists. I don't know, because I was like, for a while there, I thought really, oh man, he's gonna do it. This is pretty nice.
Yeah.
But that kind of fell through, sadly. But in my research, then I found out about 2 or 3 other artists, and David was one of them. I didn't know his work, but I found out about it somehow, and started looking through his portfolio of stuff. And he's got a weird style because he does a lot of different things. He does a lot of more traditional sort of engraving looking sort of style of work, and he also does some other things like mixed sort of techniques. They are not quite the things that I ended up having for this album, but he had like 3 or 4 paintings that I really enjoyed that were oil paintings and acrylic paintings that were more in that style of thing that I really wanted. And after I looked into those, I decided to give it a shot, and I talked to him. I reached out, and I showed him the concept of the album, because I was still working. This was very early on. I was still working on the tracks. It was the beginning of this year, so there was still a lot of work to be done on the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed him. The only thing I showed him was the concept of the album, and I explained the concept, and I explained why I was doing this and what led me to it. And he really enjoyed the concept, and he really enjoyed the idea, and it just sort of clicked, and he started drawing out a bunch of sketches, and so we could figure out what kind of painting to do for this, and we eventually arrived at what the painting is now on the cover of this album, which I was very happy with.
Yeah, I've just been sitting here looking at it. It's really, really intricate, and just, it definitely fits, especially after you've, really explained the concept. It's incredibly fitting to your concept.
Yeah, and it has that vibe I wanted out of the visuals, and it has that level of detail that is just very beautiful. And the original painting itself is very vertical, and it's very big, and
Oh, okay.
at the moment. So I think I don't think I sent it to you. I can send it to you after. So there, the original file for the album. There's the front cover, and then there's a whole section that goes below that. So the whole painting is much more vertical.
Nice.
And the parts that are not in the cover were used by Simon on the digipack. The
Awesome.
folds of the digipack contain some of the more lower portions of the painting that are not really on the cover. And but another key element of the design of the whole thing was Daniel Martins. He's a designer here from Porto, and he has this design studio called Altar with 2 A's on the beginning. And because I basically I got the raw painting. That's what I got. I had the raw painting, the raw scan, but I had to turn that somehow into, a design, a layout design, a cover and a back cover. And I really enjoy Daniel's work with Altar. He does really nice designs, and I decided I wanted to give that a shot and see how his very modern style of design would work with that kind of, I guess, raw material.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a very traditional painting.
Yeah,
right?
sort of
So,
contrasting each other.
yeah, and he got that, and we changed a bit the colors of the album, and we arrived at the sort of the golden, all golden kind of look, golden and white look on it, and he did all the lettering, the font types, and the layouts of the thing was done by him, and he did a really cool job. And I don't think you can see it yet, but it's more evident, the layout and the font types and the design of how things look on the back cover of the vinyl.
Oh,
Once
okay.
those come, you'll be able to see it. But yeah, he took all of that material and he made it into a very cool style, a very cohesive, I guess, unit that would be the design of the album. And then after those choices were made, Simon took over and applied that aesthetic into the digipack. Um, so that's how that happened, really, and it was pretty nice. And I'm really glad with how it turned out. And those guys are usually talented. David and Danielle and Simon too.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
so
Yeah, and I
it's
think I think that's gonna look really, really nice on the vinyl. I always say the best thing about having a vinyl for me is having the cover art larger. You know, you get to really
yeah,
see the detail of it, and there's a lot of detail in this image, so it's going to be really nice to have that larger version of it. And for anybody that wants the vinyl, it is, if as I'm sure a lot of you already know, if you don't, everybody's having problems with vinyl right now because just all of the factories are backed up. The factories are having a hard time getting the raw materials. Other
yeah.
factories are
That's
just generally backed up on a manpower level. It's just a cascade of issues across all genres. Everybody everywhere can't get their hands on vinyl right now. So it'll be coming along when it gets here. But luckily we didn't have to wait for. I'm glad that you went ahead and released the album and that the vinyl will come along later on. You know, I think that's
yeah.
the best plan.
Well, yeah. Well, it was also kind of no option there,
Yeah.
because yeah, we there was a whole mess with first the vinyl uh, pressing factory, I guess, had those issues, and we for the longest time on the label side, also Simon wasn't sure when those would come, if they would come on time or not, and we found out very recently that they would not. We found out very recently they only arrive in, in the next year, so 2000. So it's in 22,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure. Simon, I'll have to ask Simon. I think it's like early, so January is when they finally might arrive.
Hmm.
Um, but we had to kind of release the album anyway because there was no time to revert back the process of the digital distribution.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's understood.
So
Yeah, that.
yeah,
Yeah.
we
Well.
had a date set already. This date of September 14th was a preliminary date that was already set quite some time ago, but we just you know uh, went with it, and it's coming out now. And vinyl will, for those who want vinyl will come out a bit later. You'll have to wait about, I guess, 3 months or something like that, or whenever, wherever, or 4 months.
Yeah.
So yeah, a bit more of wait time, but they will arrive.
It'll be
They
worth
will
the
be
wait.
here. And yeah,
So
and
I have one more
people
question for you, and if
yeah.
anybody else in chat wants to throw in any more questions, now would be the time to do so. Because we are closing in on 2 hours here, so I usually like to cut it off at about the 2 hour mark. I used to always need to run outside and smoke, but I quit smoking, so now I just feel like 2 hours is still a good quitting point. Yeah, so James Plotkin did the mastering for it, and
Mhm.
I should know that name. I know I've heard that name a bunch of times. So if you could refresh my mind on why I know that name, and then tell me why you decided to work with this person for mastering.
Yeah. James Plotkin is no he's done a lot of, and I mean a lot of mastering work out there. And he has worked with just across all types of musical genres, really, from metal music a lot of metal artists to electronic music to ambient music to just whatever, you know. The reason you might know that name is because there are a lot of releases out there that have been mastered by James.
Yeah, I couldn't put my finger on any that I knew, but it's like I've read his name as mastering like many times.
Yes. Yes, he's out there. He's really out there, you know, on a lot of projects. But yeah, I decided to try him out because, you know, this was a different sounding album, and he had done some mastering work for some friends of mine, so some releases of some friends of mine, and also some artists from around here. And I really like the way he was mastering that sort of style of music. And then I found out he was the one that mastered a lot of releases that I enjoyed in the past, and with, I guess, the type of the type of music, the type of sounds that I was doing with this one, I decided to give it a shot and see how the mastering would sound done by an external outside cryo chamber, I guess. See how different it would sound mastered by someone like James. So I gave it a shot, and he sent me back the files, and I really enjoyed the sound of the mastering, and I think it complemented very well the style of album that it was. So um, that's the mastering that we used, and he also mastered for the vinyl, the
Nice.
separate mastering. So he mastered the digital and for CD, and then he mastered he did a specific mastering file for vinyl too. So that's how that happened.
Awesome.
Yeah, so a lot of people worked on his album, man, and
Yeah, I
I'm
can tell.
grateful to all. I'm grateful to all of them for having the patience and the time to collaborate and offer me so much. It's truly humbling, and they're all very talented people.
Yeah,
And
well,
I guess one extra information that I can add that I didn't share with you yet, or there will be a video coming out
oh, nice.
um, for one of the tracks for the track number 8 called Unbecoming. So that would be the track we were talking about with the voice previously.
Awesome.
So there will be a video coming out for that track. I'm not totally sure when that's released, the exact day. It's sometime like around 1 week after release, maybe.
Okay, that's cool.
I'll have to check. It's something like that, and it will be released on the Cryo Chamber YouTube channel. And it was done by Cyril, and he's the guy that has done previously also the videos for Herald's the video.
Nice.
So he did that video, and now we did a video again, and he's also a very super talented guy. He's from India, and he's just he pours all of his effort into it, really, man. And he's super talented, and he's super dedicated, and I'm super happy that he joined um, for this project too. And someone in the comments is asking, and yeah, Cyril. I'm not sure how to say his name, so I think it's Cyril Rana. I'm not sure, but I think that's it. But yeah, that's him. And he also did some work for Randall.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
also. So when Randall did Advent, the album, his album Advent, so Cyril did some video work for him too, but he also did the cover art, I believe, for the Advent.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm pretty sure that's him too, because it's the same as, yeah, it's him. But yeah, so that's another person that participated in this album, and I'm usually grateful and excited to share that video. It's good. I think some really neat visuals came out of that, so it's gonna be pretty nice.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, I think everybody that, you know, I think you have an album here to be very proud of. like I said, I've just been listening to it like crazy the last couple of days, and I really appreciate you getting it to me so I could hear the whole thing before we had our conversation today. I'm glad you decided to wait to have the conversation because I mean I love your previous work. I was perfect. If you hadn't had an album coming out, I still would have loved having a conversation with you. But the fact that we set it up for the interview to happen, like, right here along with the release of this just amazing album that you're putting out that, is in the process of happening right now.
Yeah.
That's, I thank you for that. It's really awesome. I've had a great time having a conversation with you here. I learned a lot of things about you and the process today that I didn't know and didn't think, I didn't think, I don't know. It's some really cool stuff going on with you, man. And, I really look forward to you. You're still so young, and that's the coolest part about this. Like, I really just can't wait to see where you go with your career. On a dark ambient level, and like you've just got your hands in so many things already, and it's only going to continue from here. So I feel honored to have been able to talk to you today and get to find out some of the behind the scenes of what's going on with your life and with the creation of this album and the previous albums. And yeah, I wish you all the best going forward with this, man. I think the sky is the limit for you.
Thank you very much. Thank thank you for allowing me to be here and talk and just have a nice conversation about music and my music and not only.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was pretty fun, and I'm really loving this format, and I'm really glad you're doing this with all these cool people and all these cool artists. So excited to see more people coming on, and more people from Cryo Chamber hopefully too coming on, right? So
Yeah, I'll drag them kicking and screaming in front of the camera.
one by one by one, they
Yes.
will all here. Yeah. But yeah, thank you very much, man. It's been a pleasure. It was really nice. Thank you.
Awesome, absolutely. All right, and so also thanks to all of you guys for being here today and for chiming in on the conversation. I really appreciate everybody that stops by for these interviews, and I hope you guys also enjoyed this as much as I did. And with that said, I think we'll go ahead and end it here. Everybody have a great day, a great rest of your weekend, and stay safe out there. Peace. All right, we're done.